Months later, Zeke watched a flock of crows fly off as he trailed behind Krista and Omid. Both had changed quite a bit since he met them. Neither was as depressed about Clementine. However, he could tell that there was something about off of her from the former group since day one. He was thankful he had a sense of humor. It certainly helped the atmosphere to the little group. Plus, as expected, Krista was late in her pregnancy, which made them even happier. Omid, you can't be serious, Krista said. But I am, Omid said. We are not doing that, Krista said. Zeke joined him to see them analyzing a nearby rest stop for any movement. Why not? Omid asked. Because, Krista said with a chuckle, before she got up. Walked out of the middle of the road with Omid alongside with her and Zeke, walked behind the couple. Come on, Krista, what's wrong with baby Omid? Omid said. We are not naming our baby Omid. One of you is enough, Krista said. Zeke, a little help here? They walked closer to the restrooms. Think about it, Omid said. Omid the second. No, Krista said. Omid Jr., Omid said. No, Krista said. What if it's a girl? Zeke asked. Then we'll name her Krista, Omid said. But I'm Krista. I don't want to name her that. That's just confusing, Krista said. Then we'll name her Genevieve. I don't care, Omid said. How can you not care? Krista said. They arrived at the restrooms as Zeke looked out the surrounding forest, listening to the couple's banter. You're not taking this seriously, Krista said. I take everything seriously, including little Omid's future, Omid said with a smirk. Keep talking like that, and you'll be stepping out in the rain. Remember that time in Barstow? Krista asked with a smirk. Vegas weekend, Omid said. Krista went to the women's restroom and turned to Omid with a stare. If it could talk, it would have said, follow me. Zeke shook his head and said, I'm going to clean up in the guys' room. He went over to the men's restroom. Okay, dude, Omid said. Be careful. Zeke entered the restroom and he looked around and his bow and arrow at the ready. There was a foul odor in the place. The hell? Zeke muttered. Did someone just play finger painting on their own crap? It didn't take long for him to find the stall that had feces splattered on the wall and toilet. That's not right, Zeke muttered as he closed the stall door. He went over to the sink and placed his backpack on it. He rummaged through the backpack until he found a bottle of water and a bandana. He used the water from the bottle to wet the bandana so he could clean his face. Once he finished, he looked to see a busted mirror that was dirt and grime were gone. He placed his supplies back in his backpack until he heard the door opening. Zeke stopped as he listened for the sound of light footsteps. He could tell that someone was sneaking up on him. He went to grab his bow, but he was stopped by a voice. Don't fucking move, or I will blow your head off, the teenage girl said. Zeke huffed and he said, What do you want? I want everything you have, and no funny business, the girl snapped. Zeke took his bag and tossed it to the girl. Give me that bow, too, the girl demanded. Zeke obliged as he tossed the bow with the quivers of arrows to the ground. He could hear the girl rummaging through the supplies that he had. It was now the opportunity to take control of the situation. He pulled out his knife and ready to attack the girl. He turned to see the girl looking up. He knew that she sounded older, and she appeared to be in her late teens. Did I say you could turn around? The girl snapped. Do you think I care? Zeke snapped back. The teenage girl glared at him and she stood up. You do not want to mess with me, the girl said as she placed a gun to his forehead. She made a mistake of getting too close to him. You've already made a fatal mistake messing with me, Zeke said. He took a knife that held behind his back and stabbed the girl in the leg. She let out a wail as Zeke pulled the knife out and stabbed her in the chest. The gun dropped to the ground. Zeke dragged the knife across her body and pulled it out. She spat out blood while blood pooled out on the ground. Zeke holstered the knife as the teenager fell back. He showed no remorse as the door opened. Oh my gosh, Krista said. Zeke, you alright, bud? Omid asked. Just another scavenger, Zeke said. He went over and picked up his backpack, bow, quiver, and the girl's gun. Here, Zeke said. Gave the gun to the couple. Keep it, Zeke, Krista said. Zeke shook his head and he said, I hate guns. They're too loud. They attract too many walkers. What about people? Krista asked. People like her. Zeke frowned and he said, I guess I see your point, Zeke said. He placed the gun back in his backpacks and looked to the two adults. They were staring at the dying girl. What should we do about her? Omid asked. I don't care, Zeke said. Krista sighed and she said, I'll end it. You guys wait for me outside. Okay, Omid said. A waste of a bullet if you ask me, Zeke muttered. He walked out of the restroom before either adult could question him. He leaned against the wall of the restroom and waited for Omid to join him, and for Krista to finish off the girl. Omid walked out of the bathroom and he said, Hey, are you all right? I'm fine. I just really hate scavengers, Zeke said. A gunshot was heard within the bathroom. Zeke stood upright and saw that Krista had exited out of the bathroom. Let's go, Krista said. Omid and Zeke obliged. The further they went down the road, Zeke could tell the two adults were a bit worried about him. He may have a dark back there, but there was the only because that scavenger was holding him at gunpoint and reminded him of the situation with his brother. He wasn't going to let that happen. He wasn't going to let the scavenger kill him. If that happened, then Decker would have died for nothing. Another day had passed for the young girl. She was now around the group of friends that she come to know, which included Luke, Connie, Pete, Sarah, and Reggie. Nick and Carlos were around even though Clementine wouldn't consider them friends. They were okay, but they both had their moments. Nick was too hot-headed and short-tempered to be around at times. Still, he was fun to mess with. Carlos, on the other hand, still made her feel nervous. Ever since he freaked out on her, she's been trying to avoid him. Her adoptive mother had her on her lap. She was busy combing and playing with her hair. Clementine had always enjoyed having her hair combed. It soothed her. She was surprised that she hadn't grown much. She was still rather small for her age. The group members laughed over a joke that was said, and Clementine said, Mommy? Yes, baby? Rebecca asked. Will I ever get tall? Clementine asked. The group members must have overheard what she asked, as there were a few chuckles from the group. Nope, you're supposed to stay fun-sized forever, Rebecca said with a smirk. Darn, Clementine muttered. Why do you want to get so tall, Clem? Luke asked. Clementine shrugged in response. I don't know. I just thought I should have gotten taller since when I turned 9. Isn't that how it works? Well, look at me, Rebecca, Clem. We're both pretty short. I mean, I'd be at my tallest for 4 years, Sarah said. It's a gradual process, sweetie. Besides, you should enjoy being small. It doesn't last forever, Connie said. She's right, baby, Rebecca said. When you're older, you won't be allowed to sit on my lap. Clementine frowned and she said, But I'd like to. I know you're still little, so don't worry, Rebecca said. She finished putting Clementine's hair up in hair ties. There you go. You're all set for bed. She then pulled the younger girl closer to her and wrapped her arms around her waist. Clementine smiled as she cuddled up to Rebecca. She didn't care what other members were watching her. She enjoyed cuddling when she was much younger, but when her fellow classmates tried to make fun of her, she stopped, and only grew further apart from her parents after that. She didn't want to make the same mistakes again. She's adorable, Rebecca, Connie said. She is, Rebecca said with a smile. She's just so wonderful. Luke, I'm glad you have found her. Someone like her shouldn't be out here in the world alone. Yeah, I'm glad I found her, Luke said. The adults were talking about other things, including their chores for tomorrow, while Clementine drifted off to sleep. Clementine gasped as she awoke from a nightmare. It was about what happened to Lee, but it was worse. This time he turned and bit her. She wasn't in any pain, but she was scared of coming out of her mind of a bad dream. Clem? Alvin said. She jumped when she felt a hand on her arm. She looked to see the bigger man with wide eyes. It's okay, baby, it's just me, Alvin said. Daddy? Clementine said with a whimpering voice. Oh, honey, are you okay? Alvin asked. Can you hold me, please? Clementine asked. Sure, baby, Alvin said. He picked up the child and set her down on his lap. She laid herself on his tummy and rubbed her back. You okay? Alvin asked. That was a bad dream, Clementine said. Can you tell me what it is about? Alvin asked. I was with Lee. When he was about to turn, he turned and ate me. Me, Clementine said. Oh, I'm sorry, baby, Alvin said to her surprise. He picked her up and held her like an upset toddler. To be fair, Alvin was tall and was big and was rather small for her age, so it didn't feel unnatural or uncomfortable. If anything, it felt good. Lee never did this for her. She sometimes wished he did. She felt safe in Alvin's arms, like nothing would hurt her. Eventually, she closed her eyes shut and went back to sleep. A couple of months had passed since the incident at the rest stop. Zeke kicked the walker in the leg, which caused it to fall on the ground with a growl. He finished it by stabbing the creature in the head. He turned to see Krista panting while leaning against a tree. The baby was coming. "Hang on, baby. We're almost there," Omid said. Zeke turned back to the cabin and went inside. They didn't have time to be careful or cautious. There were several rooms within a couple of in the house and killed a few walkers within the rooms. All it took for him was to shoot an arrow into their skulls. There were about 5 walkers within the cabin. Once he shot the last one, he rushed downstairs and heard Payne screaming. It was Krista. "Shit," Krista muttered. "Hang on, baby," Omid said. "Just push." Zeke noticed that Krista's pants were off and there was a blanket around her. Her pregnancy was coming to an end. He knew that the cabin would be overrun by walkers soon. Krista screamed once again while Zeke pushed a nearby chair in front of the door. The screams or heavy breathing continued, while Zeke pushed the furniture against the doors and windows. The situation wasn't good. Zeke could tell that there was a decent gathering of walkers from outside the windows. A few of the windows smashed open as Zeke pulled out his knife. He knew that he couldn't waste any more arrows on the walkers, so he would have had to wait for them to get close. Finally, the one last loud cry was heard within the abandoned cabin, followed by a fainter cry. Zeke turned to see Omid holding a new infant in his arms. "Hello, welcome to the world," Omid said, as he carried the tiny baby in his arms. He cleaned up the baby while Zeke turned to the mayhem. The walkers could get in at any minute. He walked over to Omid, who smiled. "It's a girl," Omid said with a smile. Zeke smiled but then turned to Krista. He frowned as her eyes were wide open and her chest wasn't moving. He got down and checked the woman. "Krista!" Omid exclaimed. Zeke huffed and shook his head. "She doesn't have a pulse. She was dead. She died from childbirth." "No, there has to be something we could do. Anything!" Omid exclaimed. Zeke frowned and he said, "There isn't." There was a loud crash that caught Zeke's attention. The teenager groaned as he got to his feet. He ran over to the door and kicked the approaching walker down. The creature fell to the ground with a growl before he finished it off. Zeke looked back to Omid, the baby and the body of Krista. He ran back over and said, "Omid, we need to go now," Zeke said. I can't just leave her. Not like this," Omid said. Zeke huffed and said, "We'll do an informal funeral pray," Zeke said. "The walkers won't eat her. We'll get a decent distraction, and we'll kill a lot of walkers." Omid finally nodded and got up. "Okay. Alright, go to the door of the kitchen and get out of here with her," Zeke said. Omid looked at his deceased wife one last time before he rushed back to the door of the kitchen. Zeke stabbed Krista in the head just to make sure she wouldn't come back. Next, he took out an old oil lantern and broke it, spread out the oil from the lantern and burned the cabin down. Finally took out a match and started to use a fire using the oil. He could hear the walkers climbing over and toppling over the furniture. Zeke grumbled on the rug as the wood began to fuel the ablaze. He sighed and turned to the run as the fire grew. He ran out the back door and joined Omid and the infant who was crying. He knew that Omid would never be the same again. The infant was wrapped in a blanket, cradled in his arms. I can't believe that happened." "The love of my life," Omid said. "I'm sorry, Omid. There was nothing we could have done," Zeke said. "Yeah," Omid said. He walked back forward to the dark forest with Zeke following him next. Despite that all happened, the baby in Omid's arms started to calm down. Soon, it was all dead quiet.